Namaste. Thank you again for joining me for the Krishna book reading. We will be reading again on the talks between Rukmini, Devi, and Krishna, the chapter on that. My name is Janapati Das. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto all of you who are watching. Please remember to, if you haven't already, to like, subscribe, and feel free to comment or ask questions on my page. I'd like to offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, Jagat Guru, Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa, Srila Prabhupada, and to my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And to all of you, let's begin with our kirtan, the hearing and repeating of Krishna's holy names. These are the right chords. Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddhaswarapananda Amam Saiti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddhaswarapananda Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, unfortunately, I apologize for the last video. Sometimes when I'm making things, I have too much stuff on my phone, and so it'll cut off the video. So, the video got cut off in our story about the talks between Rukmini and Krishna. Of course, as we all know, Krishna is a jokester, and as a jokester, he likes to tease his queens and his confidential servitors so they will get angry, and he can enjoy enjoy that flavor of love with them, of them being irritated with him. And so he tried to pull this on Rukmini Devi, but she, of course, is so dedicated, she didn't even buy into it and started having like a breakdown. And then he was like, oh, Krishna explained to him. And then Rukmini Devi, of course, there was a back and forth conversation, and Rukmini Devi was talking to him about basically clarifying the things that he had said and the truth about understanding of who he really is. My dear Lord, you have stated that the richest section of human society does not worship you. This is also correct, because persons who are puffed up with material possessions think of utilizing their property for sense gratification. When a poverty-stricken man becomes rich, he makes a program for sense gratification. This is due to his ignorance of how to utilize his hard-earned money. Under the spell of the external energy, he thinks that his money is properly employed in sense gratification, and thus he neglects to render transcendental service. My dear Lord, you have stated that persons who possess nothing are very dear to you, renouncing everything. Your devotee wants to possess you only. I see, therefore, that the great sage like Narada Muni, who does not possess any material property, is still very dear to you. And such persons do not care for anything but your lordship. So Narada Muni, of course, the possession he does have is his vina, but he utilizes it completely in the service of praising Krishna throughout the three worlds, chanting. My dear Lord, you have stated that a marriage between persons equal in status of social standing, beauty, riches, strength, influence, and renunciation can be a suitable match, but this status of life can only be possible by your grace. You are the supreme perfectional source of all opulences. Whatever opulent status of life one may have is all derived from you. So that's a very important point, that whatever one has is by the mercy of Krishna through their karmic, whatnot. Everything that we have is, even our own body, even ourselves, belongs to Krishna. As described in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmad Yasha Yata, you are the supreme source from which everything emanates, the reservoir of all pleasures. Therefore, persons who are endowed with knowledge desire only to achieve you and nothing else. So this is a true knowledge, the knowledge of understanding our relationship with Krishna. It's not just any knowledge, right? Someone who's been given the torchlight of knowledge from their spiritual master to basically be able to see, to be enlightened about the reality of their existence and their purpose in life. To achieve your favor, they give up everything, even the transcendental realization of Brahman. You are the supreme ultimate goal of life. You are the reservoir of all interests of the living entities. Those who are actually well-motivated desire only you, and for this reason, they give up everything to attain success. My godbrother, of course, had done a class on this about, success. How is one successful in life? And material success without Krishna is not really success. You can have material success as long as you put Krishna as that one in front of all those zeros that you gain. If you don't have Krishna in your life, you don't have any kind of relationship with Krishna or interest in Krishna's. It's like the zeros are just zeros. They don't, everything that you have materially don't add up to anything, because in the end you have to give it all up. But with Krishna, you've garnished that most valuable price. That's the real success of life. Going back to Krishna, back to our original state, our real original status. That is the one. You could have so many things, and you put that Krishna in front of there, and everything is suddenly valuable because it can be utilized in the service of Krishna. They therefore deserve to be associated with you. In the society of servitors and served in Krishna consciousness, one is not subjected to the pains and pleasure of material society, which functions according to sex attraction. Therefore, everyone, man or woman, should seek to be an associate in your society of servitors and served. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one can excel you, nor can anyone come up to an equal level with you. The perfect social system is that in which you remain in the center, being served as the Supreme, and all others engage as your servitor. In such a perfectly constructed society, everyone can remain eternally happy and blissful. So a very important point, and one that one can observe, that when you put yourself as the center, and every living entity is trying to put themselves as the center, there of course is naturally going to be conflict. War, racism, stress, anger, hatred, so many things, because everybody's trying to be the to be served, right? But where you can put Krishna in the center, God is in the center, God in the center, as it used to be in many societies. God is the center, and societies were able to function knowing that that was the one. Everything that they did was in the fact that God was always in the center. God was understood to be the source from which everything came. Everybody had the knowledge and understanding that my life here in this material world is because I have, by choice, decided to try to play God, but now I can actually reinstate myself and have a functional society, live in this world, be in the world but not of the world. You know, you can have a successful life in this world. You can be Krishna conscious while you're in this world, and then at the end of this life, you go back to Krishna. You can help other people in the highest sense. There's no welfare for mankind greater than Krishna consciousness. Things that we do in this world to try to help out our fellow men are mere flimsy band-aids. They only temporarily solve problems. If you see a hungry man on the road and you give him a piece of bread, it's like you feed him for the day, but he's hungry the next day. If you teach him about his real identity, he can come back to Krishna and leave this miserable world behind. So it's a very important point that society could be perfect. We could have very happy, but everybody is selfish and self-centered, and they don't put God as their center, or they just flat out deny the existence of God, which is unfortunately something that is increasingly happening. My Lord, you have stated that only beggars praise your glories, and that is also perfectly correct. But who are those beggars? Those beggars are all exalted devotees, liberated personalities, and those in the renounced order of life. They are all great souls and devotees who have no other business than to glorify you. Such great souls forgive even the worst offender. These so-called beggars execute their spiritual advancement of life, tolerating all kinds of tribulations in the material world. My dear husband, do not think that out of my inexperience I accepted you as my husband. Actually, I followed all these great souls. I followed the path of these great beggars and decided to surrender my life unto your lotus feet. In this world, especially in the United States and the Western countries, in this day and age, the people who are the great beggars, as Rukmini Devi was talking about, the great souls, the great devotees of Krishna, by many men are just seen as crazy and are looked down upon, because we exalt the people that have material opulence or material beauty or something in the material sense. We worship these false gods as being the great people we look up to. And when we have a pure devotee who can teach us to be in the happiest and most fulfilling state of life, most people don't want it. They don't see it. They're so blinded by their material attraction that they worship these false gods, the wrong kind of the people who are really actually true beggars. They have nothing really of any value. You said that you are penniless, and that is correct. You distribute yourself completely to these great souls and devotees. Knowing this fact perfectly well, I rejected even such great personalities like Lord Brahma and King Indra. My lord, the great time factor acts under your direction only. The time factor is so great and powerful that within moments it can effect devastation anywhere within the creation. Considering all these factors, I thought Jarasandha, Shishapala, and similar other princes who wanted to marry me to be no more important than ordinary insects. So someone who has a true vision can see that these people that have like material opulence and power but not having Krishna in their life as being not any important as an insect, which is completely opposite of what a lot of people think now. You would think of these great powerful figures and idolize them and worship them as great men and great artists and whatnot. But actually, because without God, they are nothing. They are those zeros. They are zeros. They have no value to maybe some little bit of value in society. Maybe you might be able to get somewhere materially because of them, but actually you would completely miss the point and fail to understand the true meaning of life, which is to understand who you are, why you're here, and what the purpose is, and reinstate your loving relationship with Krishna. My dear all-powerful son of Vasudeva, your statement that you have taken shelter within the water of the ocean, being afraid of all the great princes, is quite suitable, but my experience with you contradicts this. I have actually seen that you kidnapped me forcibly in the presence of all these princes. At that time of my marriage ceremony, simply by giving a jerk to the string of your bow, you very easily drove the others away and kindly gave me shelter at your lotus feet. I still remember vividly that you kidnapped me in the same way as a lion forcibly takes his share of hunted booty, driving away all other small animals within the twinkling of an eye. My dear lotus-eyed Lord, I cannot understand your statement that women and other persons who have taken shelter under your lotus feet pass their days only in bereavement. From the history of the world, we can see that princes like Anga, Prithu, Bharat, Yayati, and Gaya were all great emperors of the world, and there were no competitors to their exalted positions. But in order to achieve the favor of your lotus feet, they renounced their exalted positions and entered into the forest to practice penances and austerities. When they voluntarily accepted such a position, accepting your lotus feet as all in all, does it mean that they were in lamentation and bereavement? No, actually not at all. These were powerful emperors of the world. Yudhishthira, and they use examples of Bharat and Prithu and many great kings who were devotees of Krishna. Their service was to be the emperor, to act as a kshatriya, as a warrior and administrator during their time. But when their service as an emperor, they left it behind without any attachment because they understood the meaning of life. They understood the purpose of life. Actually, unfortunately, with the situation of King Bharat, he was a great devotee and he was so focused on his meditation on Krishna, but because of his lackadaisical attitude, he became attached to a deer whose mother had died, drowned in the water, and then the deer was born, and then Bharat, of course, being very compassionate, took pity on this and took the deer doe in and took care of it, but became so attached to the deer that's all he could think about. He couldn't even think in his meditation, and therefore he became attached to the deer, and when he left his body, he was reborn as a deer. But for most situations, even when he was an emperor, when it was time for him to go, he just left. You couldn't imagine people like, Kim Jong-un and, people in political power, Putin or Zelensky or any of these people just like, oh, I'll just step down and go to the forest, give up my position of power. People who've been in power for so long, these Saddam Husseins and people who are in power for so long. My dear Lord, you have advised me that I can still select another from the princely order and divorce myself of your companionship. But my dear Lord, it is perfectly well known to me that you are the reservoir of all good qualities. Great saintly persons like Narada Muni are always engaged simply in glorifying your transcendental characteristics. If someone simply takes shelter of such a saintly person, he immediately becomes freed from all material contamination. So the devotee of Krishna, that's why it's said that Krishna is the external manifestation of Krishna. The devotee is the external manifestation of Krishna, because he is non-different. One should not be envious of the spiritual master as one is envious of an ordinary man, because Krishna and the spiritual master are one in will. And the devotee is completely surrendered to the will of Krishna. And so therefore, that knowledge that comes from Krishna is completely dovetailed with the devotee. When you hear from the devotee, you are hearing from Krishna. Because it's an unalloyed relationship. There is no deviation. The spiritual master has no motive other than to serve Krishna and to help others come and serve Krishna. So one can be completely freed. The same is just like a touchstone, or like when you put iron into fire, the iron takes on the quality of fire exactly. So the living entity in contact with Krishna, unalloyed and completely dovetailed, has the same ability to become free, to purify the hearts of other living entities. And by coming in direct contact with your service, the goddess of fortune agrees to bestow all her blessings. Under the circumstances, what woman who has once heard of your glories from authoritative sources and somehow or other has tasted the nectarian flavor of your lotus feet can be foolish enough to agree to marry someone of this material world who is always afraid of death, disease, old age, and rebirth? I have therefore accepted your lotus feet, not without consideration, but after mature and deliberate decision. My dear Lord, you are the master of the three worlds. You can fulfill all the desires of your devotees in this world and the next, because you are the supreme soul of everyone. I have therefore selected you as my husband, considering you to be the only fit personality. You may throw me in any species of life according to the reaction of my fruitive activities, and I haven't the least concern for this. My only ambition is that I may always remain fast to your lotus feet, because you can deliver your devotees from illusory material existence and are always prepared to distribute yourself to your devotees. It reminds me of, you may reject me or throw me away, as Lord Chaitanya says, but you will always be my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Whatever you do, I will always be dedicated to you. My dear Lord, you have advised me to select one of the princes, such as Shishupala, Jartsanda, or Dantravakra. But what is their position in this world? They are always engaged in hard labor to maintain their household life, just like the bulls working hard day and night with the oil pressing machine. They are compared to asses, beasts of burden. They are always dishonored like the dogs, and they are miserly like the cats. They have sold themselves like slaves to their wives. Any unfortunate person who has never heard of your glories maybe accept such a man as your husband, but a woman who has learned about you, that you are praised not only in this world, but in the halls of the great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, will not accept anyone beside yourself as her husband. A man within this material world is just a dead body. In fact, superficially, the living entity is covered by this body, which is nothing but a bag of skin, decorated with beards and mustaches, hairs on the body, nails in the fingers, and the hairs on the head. Within this decorated bag, there are bunches of muscles, bundles of bones, and pools of blood. always mixed up with stool, urine, mucus, bile, and polluted air, and enjoyed by different kinds of insects and germs. A foolish woman accepts such a dead body as her husband, and in sheer misunderstanding loves him as her dear companion. This is only possible because such a woman has never tasted the ever blissful flavor of your lotus feet. That's a very straightforward understanding of the body. I mean, the illusion of the body, and the reason why people are attracted sexually to the living entity. They're actually attracted to the living entity because they know that the living entity innately know that they are attracted as Krishna's energy. But this is a perverted reflection in sex desire. So the a man sees a woman walking down the street, beautiful hair, beautiful body, breasts, whatever, or the woman sees a man all, buffed out and, the butt looks good, whatever, and they're like, but they don't even realize that you just strip off that layer of skin on the body. Immediately, it's disgusting. Muscle, you've seen that, or like have an eye pop out of their head. It's like, or, if that living entity leaves and the body falls down dead and it's perfectly still shaped, beautiful hair, and then you're like, oh, here's the body to enjoy. Here's the person to enjoy. And they're like, oh, no. No, why? Because the living entity is gone. They're not really attracted to the body. This body is disgusting. It's got, really, if you really contemplate what is going on, what's in the body, if somebody gets like a sword or some situation where their arm gets chopped off, people are like horrified by how, and I feel like another living entity, mosquito, is biting me in here. So it's actually, she's making a very valid point that anybody who would take the living entity in their body over Krishna is foolish, really, I keep my eye out for this guy. He's just like flying around chomping me up, but I don't actually see him. Just have to. My dear lotus-eyed husband, you are self-satisfied. You do not care whether or not I am beautiful or qualified. You are not at all concerned about it. Therefore, your non-attachment for me is not at all astonishing. It is quite natural. You cannot be attached to any woman, however exalted her position and beauty. Whether you are attached to me or not, may my devotion and attention be always engaged at your lotus feet. The material mode of passion is also... I lost my place. Therefore, your non-attachment for me is not at all astonishing. It's quite natural. You cannot be attached to any woman, however exalted her position and beauty. Whether you are attached to me or not, may my devotion and attention be always engaged at your lotus feet. The material mode of passion is also your creation, so when you passionately glance upon me, I accept it as the greatest boon of my life. I am ambitious only for such auspicious moments. After hearing Rukmini's statement and her clarification of each and every word which she had used to arouse her anger of love toward him, Krishna addressed Rukmini as follows. My dear chaste wife, my dear princess, I was expecting such an explanation from you. And for this purpose only I spoke all those joking words, so that you might be cheated of the real point of view. Now my purpose has been served. The wonderful explanation that you have given to each and every word of mine is completely factual and approved by me. O most beautiful Rukmini, you are my dearmost wife. I am greatly pleased to understand how much love you have for me. Please take it for granted that no matter what ambition and desire you might have, and no matter what you might expect from me, I am always at your service. And it is a fact that also that my devotees, my dearmost friends and servitors are always free from material contamination, even though they are not inclined to ask for me such liberation. My devotees never desire anything from me except to be engaged in my service. And yet, because they are completely dependent upon me, even if they are found to ask something from me that is not material, Such ambitions and desires, instead of becoming the cause of material bondage, become the source of liberation from this material world. My dear chaste and pious wife, I have tested on the basis of strict chastity your love for your husband, and you have passed the examination most successfully. I have purposely agitated you by speaking many words which were not applicable to your character, but I am surprised to see that not a pinch of your devotion to me has been deviated from its fixed position. My dear wife, I am the bestower of all benedictions, even up to the standard of liberation from this material world, and it is I only who can stop the continuation of material existence and call one back to home, back to Godhead. One whose devotion for me is adulterated worships me for some material benefit just to keep himself in the world of material happiness, culminating in the pleasure of sex life. One who engages himself in severe penance and austerities just to attain this material happiness is certainly under the illusion of my external energy. Persons who are engaged in my devotional service simply for the purpose of material gains and sense gratification certainly are very foolish. Material happiness based on sex life is available in the most abominable species of life, such as hogs and dogs. So you could be a rat in a rat's body, and you could eat food, and you could have sex, and you can run around and, sleep, and all those things in the body of a rat. And there's a famous story, of course, with King Indra, who created an offense and had to take on the form of a hog. So he was eating stool, which because hogs like to eat stool, poop, and he was living his hog life and having sex with other pigs. And then when time was done, he was supposed to come back to being and he was like, well, why would I want to do that? I have this great life. It's like, he was like completely enamored. And nobody really would think that because, in the human form of life, you're like, well, I couldn't imagine being a fly and landing on stool and landing on food and spitting and vomiting up and having sex with other flies and, all those kinds of things. And, but in a fly consciousness, when you're in the body of a fly, you're completely, your subtle body, your mind is completely controlling you. So you're like, this is great. This is wonderful. Just like the food and the existence of a human compared to a demigod is this like, from a human to a fly is like from the demigod to a human. So it's hard for us to really understand that, but we've been in so many species of life that, but by the fortune of Krishna, we have forgotten our existence like that. No one should try to approach me for such happiness because it is available. Even if one is put into a hellish condition of life, it is better, therefore, for persons who are simply after material happiness and not after me to remain in that hellish condition. Material contamination is so strong that everyone is working very hard day and night for material happiness, and to show the show of religiousness, austerity, penance, humanitarianism, philanthropy, politics, science, everything is aimed at realizing some material benefit. That's a really important point. If you think about how hard, you just look around, how hard people are trying to be happy or try to achieve material achievement as if that is going to be enough. Because even if you do get it, will you be happy doing it? And how long will that last? Our life is very short. And when you look at everything in the material world, religiousness, austerity, penance, humanitarianism, philanthropy, politics, science, everything, the study of all universities, all these things are aimed at trying to improve our material existence. But very few things are really aimed at the questions of life. Even philosophy is pretty much aimed towards material benefit. So there's nothing like Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the all-in-all knowledge to be able to get out of the material world, to reinstate your existence. But none of that is ever taught in anything else. For the immediate success of material benefit, the materialistic persons generally worship different demigods, and under the spell of material propensities, they sometimes take to the devotional service of the Lord. This is a really important point because even in so-called atheism, people are actually still kind of worshiping demigods. They're still aiming at that, for material benefits, for material success. Those people that are in religious, sometimes people will pray to God. They will even pray to God to please help me materially. But it's not like God is sort of the ultimate bubblegum machine, so you can get whatever flavor you want to get out of him, right? As my spiritual master has said, you should not use Jesus as your doormat, or use Jesus or God as some kind of Santa Claus that just gives you whatever you want materially. You can pray for that, but like Bhaktivedanta says, it's very foolish. It's a very foolish thing to do. Waste your time worshiping God over for material benefits. Sometimes it so happens that a person sincerely serves the Lord and at the same time remains materially ambitious. Maintains material ambition. The Lord very kindly removes the sources of material happiness without finding any recourse in material happiness. The devotee then engages himself absolutely in pure devotional service. Lord Krishna continued, "My dear best of the queens, it is clearly understood by me that you have no material ambition. Your only purpose is to serve me, and you have long been engaged in unalloyed service. Exemplary, unalloyed devotional service not only can bestow upon the devotee liberation from this material world, but it also promotes him to the spiritual world for being eternally engaged in my service. Persons who are too addicted to material happiness cannot render such service. Women whose hearts are polluted and full of material desires devise various means of sense gratification while outwardly showing themselves to be great devotees." Okay, we're almost done here. Felt that mosquito again. "My dear honored wife, although I have thousands of wives, I do not think that any of them can love me more than you. The practical proof of your extraordinary position is that you have never seen me before your marriage. You had simply heard about me from a third person, and still your faith in me was so fixed that even in the presence of many qualified, rich, and beautiful men of the royal order, you did not select one of them as your husband, but insisted on having me. You neglected all the princes present, and very politely you sent me a confidential letter inviting me to kidnap you. While I was kidnapping you, your elder brother Rukmini violently protested and fought with me. As a result of the fight, I defeated him mercilessly and disfigured his body. At the time of Aniruddha's marriage, while we were all engaged in playing chess, there was another fight with your brother Rukmini on a controversial verbal point, and my elder brother Balaram finally killed him." Actually, the story is going to come up in a later thing of how Balaram killed Rukmini, the brother of Rukmini. "I was surprised to see that you did not utter even a word of protest over this incident. Because of your great anxiety that you might be separated from me, you suffered all the consequences without speaking even a word. As a result of this great silence, my dear wife, you have purchased me for all time. I have become eternally under your control. You sent your messenger to me, inviting me to kidnap you. And when you found that there was a little delay in my arriving on the spot, you began to see the whole world as vacant. At that time, you concluded that your beautiful body was not fit to be touched by anyone else. Therefore, thinking that I was not coming, you decided to commit suicide and immediately end that body. My dear Rukmini, such great and exalted love for me will always remain within my soul. As far as I'm concerned, it is not within my power to repay you for your unalloyed devotion to me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, certainly has no business being anyone's husband or son or father, because everything belongs to him, and everyone is under his control. He does not require anyone's help for his satisfaction. He is Atma Rama, self-satisfied. He can derive all pleasure by himself without anyone's help. So a real important point, Krishna does not need us. It's not like we have to play some role in making Krishna satisfied. But we need Krishna, actually, because Krishna is our ultimate source, our ultimate father and mother and child. He is our dearest friend. And without him, we are completely lost in this material world, birth after birth. When the Lord descends to play the part of a human being, he plays a role either as a husband, son, friend, or enemy in full perfection. So it's an important point. So that even the enemy of Krishna, Krishna also, his devotees will play his enemy too. So as such, when he is playing as a perfect husband of the queens, especially of Rukmini ji, he enjoyed conjugal love and complete perfection. According to Vedic culture, although polygamy is allowed, none of the wives should be ill-treated. In other words, one may take many wives only if he is able to satisfy all of them equally as an ideal householder. Otherwise, it is not allowed. So this was a very important point in the system of polygamy that was in the Vedic system that you don't really see nowadays, when men just want to have lots of wives and have them serve them and get sense gratification from them. But actually, it was a very strict situation. If you were not able to be kind and compassionate to your wives and take care of your wives equally, you were not allowed to have them. Lord Krishna is the world teacher. Therefore, even though he had no need for a wife, he expanded himself into as many forms as he had wives, and he lived with them as an ideal householder, observing the regulative principles, rules, and commitments in accordance with the Vedic injunctions and the social laws and customs of society. So Krishna didn't need to follow rules and regulations, but he does so that mankind can see and act as sort of like it's said in the Bhagavad Gita, what a great man does, common men will follow. So if